Today on The Loud Quiet, the Four Intimacies with Dr. Amy and Roy Clark. Hey guys, welcome back to The Loud Quiet. We have a couple of questions for you today. How's your sex life? How's the intimacy in your relationship? This episode is coming out around Valentine's Day, before Valentine's Day, because we have some guests on today that may have some products and information that you might want to order for Valentine's Day.
That's right. You definitely want to get to know our guests today as we're going to get to know them. We are so happy to have Dr. Amy and Roy Clark with us today. They are the authors of The Four Intimacies, Unlocking the Love You Desire. They're also the founders of Aria luxury brands. And if you aren't watching the video and just listening, just know that on the video, we have an absolutely beautiful example of their product where elegant design turns these practices into daily rituals. From their signature luxury lubricant to the intimacy question card included in every box. If you're ready to make love feel intentional and alive, you're in the right place. Dr. Amy and Roy, welcome to The Loud Quiet.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
It's great to be here. This is kind of exciting.
Yeah, we're so excited about this episode, and especially the timing of this episode, because February is Valentine's Day, love. So we're gonna get right into it. So in this especially us being empty nesters, but we have other age groups that listen. We have some younger couples that listen. What is the biggest misconception about intimacy that couples have?
There's a lot of them. That's the problem.
I know. Yes. Hard to narrow it down.
Well, I think, the fact that it's so broad, right? That there are so many misconceptions, right? The one common denominator is that I think most people think that we should have it all figured out. It's like, you know about that. You can figure that out by yourself, right? And really what they're talking about is just sex. Like sex is just singular, but intimacy is so broad. I mean, it includes, like we said in our book, it includes verbal, emotional, physical, and spiritual. It includes all of that. And the people we have worked with, our families, our friends, they don't talk about it like that. They don't include all four of those things into intimacy.
Well, they don't even talk about sex.
Right.
Like even here in our office, like in a therapy office, people are still very reluctant. Like, ooh, am I allowed to talk about that? Or I'm like, this is the place that we talk about this. We need to create more normalcy in talking about intimacy.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. In that idea of creating more normalcy around just talking about it and experiencing it, I think you described in one of the misconceptions that we have it all figured out.
Right.
I think another one is that we just feel like, well, intimacy and all the definitions of intimacy, and including sex, should just happen. That it should just be natural. It should just be a normal part of a relationship.
Right.
But I can assure you that anyone that has been married for more than a day recognizes that that is absolutely not the case. In the book, The Four Intimacies, Unlocking the Love You Desire, y'all talk about this. How did you really realize that traditional relationship advice around intimacy just simply wasn't enough, and that couples needed a more structured approach to intimacy?
Yeah. Go for it, babe.
I think it's just after years of repeating, like working with couples, seeing them not be able to communicate, not connecting emotionally, misunderstanding each other. It's like, okay, they don't know how to do this. So let's boil this down. Verbal intimacy, like we ask questions and listen with the intent to understand and a willingness to be influenced. And we will camp out there for quite a while with couples, like talking about like people are really good at talking about logistics, and especially when you have kids in the home and work schedules, and it's like talking all the time, but you don't feel each other. You don't know the love maps of the other person.
Right.
So one is developing verbal intimacy to really like talk about how you're feeling and not just what you're doing. And then but we're both sides, like we think that like women, we think that we're really emotionally astute, but it's like I see women every day in the office that they do not understand the emotional intimacy.
Yeah.
How do you identify and validate the other person's
Mhm.
feelings?
Right.
Mhm.
So I feel like we spend most of our time in verbal and emotional intimacy. And then once they got that locked down, then we take that into the physical intimacy. And let's actually talk about sex and like how to make that better, because I don't feel like a lot of people are actually having really good sex.
Right. Well, you asked, how did we come to this conclusion? Right. So it's 30 years of working with couples and hearing so many couples not understand the basics. How do you communicate? How do you ask a question that leads to an emotional connection? How do you empathize? Meet with men in particular. Our dads never taught us how to empathize. In fact, we would do the opposite, right? Just bury it, get it done, fix it, move on, son. Let's go. We don't have time for this. We just met with a client. They said they were taught not to ask questions. Well, they weren't even allowed to go to the Home Depot and ask the manager where something was.
Jeez,
Wow.
yeah.
It's just that level of we just don't ask questions and listen. And so when you hear that for so long, and then you realize that when you have such beautiful verbal and emotional intimacy and how it impacts your sex life, oh, you just want to tell everybody.
So what happens when a couple just skips right to the physical part and doesn't invest in the other parts?
Yeah, they miss out.
Yeah.
They find themselves going, I thought this would be better. Well, let's try it again, right? And the typical complaint is, well, we just don't do it enough. That's the problem. I just don't get enough. Well, I've worked with men for years that when you teach them how to connect emotionally and verbally, all of a sudden they don't need as much sex because the sex that they're having is so much more extraordinary. And they now have this emotional relationship with their wife. It becomes beyond, I'm not going to say carnal, but beyond biology. It now becomes this a way to connect with my wife that really meets her needs. She actually finds me more attractive when we have this type of physical intimacy. And so they're done missing out. If you jump right to the sex, you're missing 3/4 of it because it does impact your spiritual life as well. Like you get this new understanding of what love is and who God is and his whole dream for our life. It's fairly extraordinary. So now when you're making love or when you're having sex, it becomes this multifaceted experience. And I'm not saying like it happens like that every single time.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's different every time. But at the same time, you have this holistic approach. Oh, it's extraordinary.
Some relationships, like in the beginning, like there is such physical chemistry that happens. And in
Yeah.
the beginning of a relationship, you can kind of get away with it, but it's not sustainable.
Right.
And so, like, just jumping to the sex, it's like over time, especially for women, we need that verbal and emotional intimacy to actually crave the physical intimacy. So it's like the women will say, the only time he tries to talk to me is when he wants sex. And so, like, he just wants my body. He doesn't want me.
Right.
So,
we like the question that you're asking, I was thinking about, there were times when the kids were in the house that sometimes it would be the element of, okay, they're asleep. Let's go get in bed right now because that's our moment for that.
Yeah.
It feels like something that what you're talking about now is even more so applicable here in the empty nest where there is that time because there were plenty of moments in our relationship where the physical intimacy was just about all we had time for to stay connected in that specific moment. Now there's more time for empty nesters to explore all four of those intimacies.
Well, and I think it also enhances your relationship outside of the bedroom.
Yeah.
I mean, it has to. If you're getting that emotional connection and verbal connection, I could see that, it really does embrace all of the aspects of your relationship.
And it's not to say that even in the empty nest, there isn't the time that, we'll look at each other and go, hey, do you want to go to the back? Right. And the answer is, yeah, let's go to the back. And we absolutely do that. Roy, you brought in something there. You were talking about the spiritual. You were talking about how this is God's creation. You were talking about that aspect of it. This is an area that often, especially given y'all's Christian backgrounds, Roy, you were a pastor. Amy, you have a doctorate in Christian counseling. A lot of times these topics of intimacy and sex are viewed as taboo in that world. So how are you navigating the faith aspect of your world along with conversations around physical intimacy and honestly creating a product right here on our table that enhances sexual pleasure and emotional connection?
Yeah. So I guess we had to move beyond some of our early thinking and realize that this was actually God's idea. This was his design. The orgasm was his invention. Like, it's not something that we came up with. Well, how is it that we experience something that he created, that he designed, and then now all of a sudden don't talk about it?
Right.
When you start with the concept that, wait a minute, this was his idea. And if it's his idea, why don't we talk about it? So yeah, let's talk about it. The other thing that happens is we went to 35 adult stores in Miami, and we saw some of the darkest places.
I can imagine.
They can be clean and they can be incredibly seedy. Yes.
It was amazing. But we come pulling into this seedy place, and it was pretty rough. And we said to each other, before we walk in there, we said a little prayer, and we said, we're going to see anybody on the other side of that door as a child of God. That's what we're going to do, because they are. And so we walk in, and there's this kid there, and he's 20-something years old, and he's got his tattoos and his piercings, and he looked, just the opposite of us, because we look like we came from Naples, Florida, and all our, And we brought in a box, and we opened it up, and we showed him the conversation card, the 4 questions that walk you through the 4 intimacies. And this kid, with nearly tears in his eyes, says, I think my girlfriend and I could really use this.
Wow.
And I'm in my, I'm going to sell cases of, lube today. And I totally missed this kid. And, it took my beautiful wife to go, honey, he wants to buy one.
He wants one.
And I'm like, oh, yeah. And it was just amazing, because this idea of intimacy and the way that we're created, we long for it. Like, if you get beyond that first hurdle with Christians in particular, they want to talk about it so bad because they never have. And if you look at them and say, this is God's design and his idea, what would you like to know about it? All of a sudden they're like, oh, thank you. We've heard from so many people. We've just never heard anybody talk about sex like this.
I really think y'all's book should be wedding shower gifts, or even like, given to couples that are dating.
After visiting all those places, it's like, well, I mean, we took a look at the market before we designed Aria, but we were just like, everything around intimacy just seems so dirty and like a little raunchy or silly, and nothing that was beautiful and classy. And so we were like, let's create something that is gorgeous and displayed, because people always say oh, we forget, we're so busy, we forget to make love. And it's like, how about having this visual love note on your nightstand that sits there, and you walk past it and you see it every day, and it's like, oh yeah, that felt amazing, let's use that again, or let's make time for that.
Right.
You got your bottle right there on the table there. So you got to take that label on the outside and slide that off.
Ribbon.
The ribbon on the outside.
Oh, I didn't even. We've already used it, but I didn't.
You're doing great. Yeah, there you go. And now you just slide that little ribbon off, and you've got this gorgeous bottle that is meant to be displayed. Look at that. There you go.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And I left the conversation card downstairs because we actually went through the conversation questions.
This is not a product that hasn't been sampled.
So, great job, Dave. awesome.
Yeah. I was thinking about, you were talking about having it out. We're comfortable putting sticky notes to remind us to do all sorts of healthy behaviors.
Right.
This is essentially the beautiful sticky note of, hey, how about a healthy relationship behavior of intimacy and sex?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
And for couples that have young ones around, it's like they're not like, what is this? It either looks like a decoration or people think it's perfume, and we could say it's discreetly displayed.
Yeah.
Yes, no, it is. It's very pretty, and the boxing, everything, I was really impressed with when we got it. So speaking of your business, let's pivot a little bit, because y'all are one of the first couples that we have come across that work together like we do.
Yeah.
So how was that, doing the designing the product? Were there tiffs? We get into some
Creative
differences. We
differences.
get into some creative differences along the way. So tell us about how y'all managed that and kept, your spouse side of it as well as being business partners.
Well, I spent 13 years as an artist, and so you learn a thing or two in that world. And though the idea of doing this business and what the business would be, even the formula itself, why we chose silicone, that was all done together. And not that the design wasn't, but I spearheaded the design as almost a gift for my wife. Like, this is to reflect our relationship. And so she was really kind of my muse in this. We wanted something that would reflect our beauty and worth, her beauty and worth. And so she kind of allowed me to design this. However, at the same time, every moment that we came up with something, we looked at it together. And
I think that project was actually very easy, but we also work together in therapy, like 5 days a week. And so we do all of our couples counseling, couple to couple.
Yep.
And then we each have a heavy caseload of individual clients, and which we process together at the end of the day. Just so it's a way for us to kind of debrief. And then like, if there's anything that I missed, is there anything you would have said or added to that and stuff? Feel like in that department, there is a better chance to have like some differences of opinion.
for sure.
But in that, I think the way that we address like differences of opinion is that like we have a belief about each other that we value. I think Roy's brilliant. He thinks I'm brilliant. We have two different perspectives, and we need to see the other side. So like I need a man's perspective. I don't have that.
Right.
And so like when we don't take offense at like thinking something different, tell me more. We have a curious mindset. And then if I'm here and he's here, then how do we step forward together?
Right. The other thing is we don't have any resentments. We deal with any conflict that we have right away, and we make sure that it is completely resolved to the best of our ability. It might come up every once in a while, like, hey, I'm still thinking about this or that, but we work very, very hard. We call it rocks in the shoe, to get all the rocks out of the shoe before we go on the walk again. Because if you don't, that thing will grow, it will blister. Next thing you know, you've got a limp, and that's no fun. So,
I like that.
I knew this is why we wanted them on the show, so that we could get a little free mini therapy session here.
talk to us. What's going on? All right.
I heard two really important nuggets in there. One is the deal with like the rocks in the shoe, absolutely the deal with it part of it. But I also liked how you said we're starting from a position of respect. We're starting from a position. So if I start with a position of knowing that Clancy respects me and vice versa, if she gives me a note about the way that I did something in a podcast or the way we did an edit, instead of me thinking, she just thinks that I'm a bunch of crap and I'm going to fight against that, starting from respect was particularly helpful there. So thank you for our little mini therapy session there.
Absolutely. We're here for you.
Back to the product. When we bought it, and when we've used other lubricants before, it's lubricant. It is there to enhance the sexual pleasure. This one goes beyond it. We've alluded to that conversation card. It was really intriguing to open and see that conversation card to spark those questions for a couple. what inspired you? Because that's a specific choice to include that card in a lubricant product.
Yeah.
Well, our book, The Four Intimacies, is all about this theory that intimacy is like a combination lock. Verbal intimacy unlocks emotional intimacy. Emotional intimacy unlocks physical intimacy, and physical intimacy unlocks spiritual intimacy. So we know the importance of having conversation and connection before sex. And again, we're trying to do things differently. We want to destigmatize sex and like realize that intimacy, when done right, is really beautiful.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
we're trying to set ourselves apart. And
For us, it made perfect sense. The two should go in the same box, right? Because great communication leads to great lubrication.
But you need to put that on a t-shirt. That could be some merch. You're the couple you were talking about earlier that, said they don't talk about sex. Sex was not, they weren't supposed to ask questions growing up.
Yeah.
When you have a couple like that comes to you, how do you even get them started? What's the first step?
I think a lot of times that's in individuals. So we typically meet with a couple together for that first session, and then we break off into individuals. And so I feel like a lot of times, like I'm talking to a woman one-on-one about that. And I feel like a lot of times, like I have to start the conversation and be transparent just to get the ball rolling. And then it's like, okay. And then there's just such a relief of, oh my gosh, I've never been able to talk about this with anybody. I've
Right.
always felt embarrassed or shamed. And I'm like, there's no shame.
The way that you teach somebody how to ask questions is by asking them questions. And so that's what the first session, the second session, well, that's what almost every session is about, right? It's learning how to become a master questionnaire. It's always the seventh, eighth, or ninth question where people really start to answer you from their heart, right? They'll give you logistics. But, Tony Robbins has got his thing called 7 layers deep, where you just ask, and why did you do that? And why that? And why, it's just asking seven times why. And so what we do is we explore a person's sexual history and their belief system about that. So what does sex mean to you? When you make love to somebody, what are you feeling? What are you thinking? What's going through your mind there? And why do you have sex? Why do you not have more sex? Why do you, what don't you like about sex? Well, all these questions lead to their belief system. And there is at first this hesitation, right? Because it's incredibly vulnerable. But once you've earned their trust and knowing that you're going to connect with them emotionally, like, I know this is scary. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for being vulnerable. This doesn't go anywhere other than this room. So you're giving these verbal affirmations of confidence. Okay, well, all I'm doing is asking questions. So then we would say, now, when you go home tonight, ask some of these questions to your spouse. Ask them these questions. Well, I never thought about asking that.
Oh, that's you can tell I'm frozen a little bit because that's hard. Even in our relationship, where I feel very comfortable talking with Clancy and
Right.
and that it can be really hard to initiate those difficult questions that you're describing. How do you, like, almost tactically, how can you advise someone to take that first step to ask those questions that might be challenging, or there's baggage, or there's just discomfort asking such personal and intimate questions, even with your most personal and intimate person, your spouse?
How do you set the scene? That's
What she said in just a lot simpler words.
But yeah, it's, I don't want to walk in the front door and say, hey, so how do you set the mood or scene?
I guess, like, again, like going back to the 4 intimacies, it's like we're not going to start talking about physical intimacy. We're going to back it all the way up to like verbal intimacy about life and how are you feeling and what season are you in, and then like making sure that you're really feeling emotionally connected. It's like,
Mhm.
don't go to the most difficult,
Vulnerable.
Yeah.
first.
Mm.
Like we had a guy that was in, and him and his wife were like pretty much in crisis. And so like he goes home, he's like, I'm gonna ask more questions, and he goes straight for like sex questions. It's like, no, no, no,
Easy,
no.
champ.
Like,
Easy.
Yeah.
so, but we have a theory called the 5%, and that's to bring up a difficult conversation. So the 5% is that, like, we can talk about 95% of things in real time, but if I say, hey, babe, can we talk about a 5%? That means turn the world off, shut your phone off. Like, is it a good time? Do we have enough room to have this conversation? And then he knows that this is difficult for me to say, and it might be difficult for him to hear, but we're almost like bracing for impact. Like, all right, this might be a hard conversation,
Mm.
but we're in a really good place before we bring up a difficult conversation.
Right.
I like that.
Ooh,
I
I
like
really
that.
like
Yeah, I like
that.
that 5%. That's really
Mhm.
good. And
Absolutely.
I'm storing all these nuggets for, y'all have children, adult children, and storing all these nuggets for them because I'm sure our listeners have children that are now entering relationships. And so, yeah,
You want them to be doing that now in their 20s rather than
yeah.
trying to figure it out in their empty nest days.
Well, yeah, because I was very open with our kids about sex. I let them ask anything they wanted to, but they saw us model the emotional side. But yeah, I don't know that we talked much about the
Well, they didn't see us
emotional
having a
side.
conversation about sex, right?
Right, but
So
yes,
yeah. So there's elements that, for reasons that make sense, that are protected and that are kept private for us. They
Yeah.
saw an open, a very comfortable conversational relationship. But yeah, these specific things are going to be incredibly helpful.
Yeah.
We have,
So-
for couples too, we have like this yes, no, maybe quiz. And that is a lot more comfortable. We had a couple, they've been married for 30 years, and they're empty nesters, and they're like, okay, we finally have time. But sex was a little bit awkward. We had some emotional distance, and we both changed a lot over 30 years. And so I said, I have a yes, no, maybe quiz. Do you guys want to take that? They're like, oh, that's great, because they could just check things off. They didn't actually have to have the conversation about, and then they could compare notes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And so like and then it's like, if there's a maybe, that's a great conversation of like, what's the hesitation? Is there something, what's the rub there?
Yeah,
or like,
right.
what would it take to make it a yes? Not that I'm trying to convince you, but I'm just curious. And so like they loved that exercise, and they were surprised at each other. Oh, I didn't know that you would check yes for that. Like,
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that because that's just safe. That's a
Yeah,
safe.
because you get to do the answering, the processing privately, and then, well, it's on the sheet of paper, so I guess I'm going to show you.
Yeah.
So yeah, oh, I love
You
that.
don't get blamed for asking the question, right? Like,
Yeah.
you go skinny dipping? No, I don't want to go skinny. Like, why did you bring that up? Pervert? You know what I mean?
No, but it's on the sheet.
Yeah. So you get to blame the sheet,
You
right?
don't
Yeah.
Yeah. And you don't
I
feel the
love that.
rejection. Right.
So y'all have, set out on this mission to help others improve relationships and intimacy. So let's flash forward 20 years. How will you know that what you have put out there in the world has been a success?
Yeah.
My hope is that the Four Intimacies becomes a household name, like the five love languages. That people start talking about intimacy in more dimension than just sex.
Yeah. Yeah. And you see Aria in every Neiman Marcus, every Sephora, every, major brand out there. And every month there's a new question card in there. People know
nice. Oh,
that
yeah, I like that.
it's about the conversation as much as it's about the lube in the bottle. So
Love it.
Yeah.
then,
I've gotten a lot out of this. I know that we've gotten a lot out of this. I know our listeners have gotten a lot out of this. Everything from just talking about how to work together as a couple to the understanding that intimacy is not just physical intimacy, and there's the 4 dimensions of it. I really thought it was insightful, the kind of cascade, if you will, as you went through the 4 intimacies, how they unlock each of the other ones. If our listeners, if our viewers wanted to get to know a little bit more about you, your consulting practices, your luxury brand Aria, the book, what's the best way for them to get to know more?
Yeah. So royandamy.com. It's just like it's spelled, RoyAndAmy, RoyandAmy.com, or you can go to AriaLuxLife.com. So Aria, you're going to get the products and the book at RoyandAmy.com. You can check out the packages that we've got there. We love meeting with couples, buy 20 sessions and just know that they're there. We have one couple actually buy 40 sessions and give 10 sessions away to some people in their
nice.
church.
Mhm.
So
That's nice.
yeah,
Awesome.
it's really cool to see that kind of giving going on, because they really did impact that couple's relationship. They couldn't
Yeah.
afford it. And they came in, they took all 10 sessions, and it was pretty cool. So
Oh,
What a
that's
brilliant
cool.
idea. I
Yeah.
mean, who needs another Applebee's gift card? Instead, give sessions
Well,
with
yeah.
Dr.
Right.
Again,
Amy Roy.
another great wedding shower gift. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
there's for sure.
That's
Great
a
idea.
really good idea.
We
Well,
love
you guys,
seeing
we
it all happening.
loved
Yeah.
having you on today. Thank y'all
Oh,
so
thank
much.
you.
For our
Love your
Loud Quiet
podcast.
listeners, you can find all the information at theloudquiet.com, and also become a part of our community by hitting that community button on top. And again, we can give a personal endorsement for the product because yes,
Thank
and
you very much.
I haven't ordered the book, but I am going to
Yeah.
go order the book, and I think I may order a few copies to hand out to some people
like the
too
idea.
as well.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for being on The Loud Quiet.
Thank you.
Thank you.